Bang! The glass of my cabin window exploded, inward shards raining across the floor like frozen rain. I froze where I stood, heart hammering in my chest as 8 men in tactical gear fanned out on my front lawn. One of them, a thick-necked brute with eyes as dead as shark glass, raised his rifle and shouted, "Leave now, or I'll shoot." That was the moment I realized the Pine Ridge HOA wasn't playing games anymore. They wanted me gone, and they'd brought guns to make it happen. My name's David Carter, and that cabin was more than just wood and nails. It was my father's legacy, the only place that gave me peace after 15 years of combat tours. But peace doesn't last long when a tyrant like Karen Blackstone runs your neighborhood. She was the president of the Pine Ridge Homeowners Association, and she made it her mission to break me. It started small letters about weeds, complaints about my truck, fake fines for noise that never happened. I laughed it off at first. I'd faced worse than paper threats. But she escalated fast. Within months, I was getting official-looking documents shoved into my mailbox, eviction notices stamped with seals that didn't belong to any court in North Carolina. When I confronted her at a meeting, she smirked in front of 100 people and told me my cabin was an eyesore dragging down property values. That's when I realized this wasn't about community standards. It was about power. Still, nothing prepared me for the day her private army came to my doorstep. They claimed they had authority. I asked to see credentials, and the fake badge they flashed was missing the hologram any rookie could have spotted. My neighbors, bless them, were already recording from their porches. I raised my voice, called it out for the fraud it was. The mercenary's jaw twitched. He didn't like being exposed. His radio crackled, and I heard the voice I'd grown to despise, Karen herself. "Negative on physical force," she snapped. "We need this clean for the cameras." Cameras. She always thought in terms of optics. She thought I'd cave quietly. But I'd learned long ago bullies crumble when the spotlight hits them. I wanted to believe the law would stop her. So I went digging spent hours in the courthouse until my hands smelled like dust and ink. And there it was, the deed. My father had bought Lot 247B in 1987, years before Pine Ridge HOA even existed. Legally, they had no jurisdiction over my property. No fine, no citation, no eviction carried a shred of weight. I held that deed in my hands and felt fire in my chest. I thought finally I'd put an end to this madness. But when I walked out of the courthouse, the local paper was waiting on the stands. Karen's face grinned back at me under the headline, "Community Hero of the Year." She'd just donated 50 grand to playgrounds, all while painting me on TV as a dangerous veteran, a squatter. I nearly tore that paper in half. That was the moment I doubted myself for the first time. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe my cabin didn't belong anymore. Maybe I was just clinging to ghosts. I sat at my kitchen table staring at that deed, asking myself if it was worth dragging my son through hell just to prove a point. But then Tyler, my boy, came in. 16 years old, still shaky, but learning fast. He put his phone down in front of me. "Dad," he said, "look at this." He'd been live streaming the mercenaries' raid, and thousands of strangers had watched, commented, raged on our behalf. People believed us. People saw through her lies. That's when I snapped out of it. I wasn't just fighting for a cabin. I was fighting for every family Karen had steamrolled, every veteran she'd threatened, every elderly couple she'd shoved out of their homes. I couldn't quit. Not now. When Karen invited me to a so-called peace talk at the community center, I knew it was a setup. She sat across from me in her designer suit, that politician's smile plastered on her face. She slid a folder toward me. $250,000, she said. More money than I'd seen in years. But then came the threat, smooth as butter. If I didn't sell, she'd bury me in code violations and environmental lawsuits that could drag on for decades. I clicked my pen and let it record every word. "That's fascinating," I said, keeping my voice even. "Tell me more about Griffin Development Corporation." Her mask cracked for just a second. I had her. That night my son uploaded the recording. It spread like wildfire. Suddenly, I wasn't just the crazy veteran. I was the guy who caught the HOA president conspiring with developers to steal land. And as the pressure mounted, Karen made her biggest mistake. She called in her mercenaries again. 2:30 in the morning, my door crashed open. They stormed in with forged warrants shouting that I was under arrest for terrorism threats. My son's live stream caught it all. I called out their crimes impersonating law enforcement, armed home invasion, falsified documents, and the viewers surged past 2,000. Then, out of nowhere, Karen's own son Brad stepped forward recording them too, broadcasting it live to his mother's Facebook page. That broke them. You could see it in their eyes. This wasn't intimidation anymore. This was evidence piling up in real time. They tried to hold their ground, but I flipped the breaker, killed the power. The neighborhood went black, and in the dark, fear shifted. Not mine, theirs. They scattered like rats. When the lights came back, they were gone, but the battle wasn't. Karen still sat high in her 12-story glass tower, convinced her influence made her untouchable. What she didn't know was that I had brothers men I'd bled with overseas. The moment I texted them, Raven activated, they mobilized. Marcus, Jake, Nick, Sam. We didn't need guns for this fight. We had surveillance cyber skills and tactical patience. Within days, we'd mapped every weakness of her headquarters, every fraud file on her servers, every corrupt transaction funneling through her fake foundation. The climax came fast. While Tyler's livestream audience climbed into the millions, my team executed blackout protocol on the HOA building. The entire structure plunged into silence and dark. Karen's frantic flashlight beam danced across her office window, a queen finally realizing her castle walls were paper thin. She tried to call in favors. She phoned a senator, begged for federal protection. He cut her off on live stream, told her never to call again. And then Brad, her own blood, went public, confessing everything, handing over recordings exposing how she planned to frame me and dozens of others. When the FBI rolled up with a convoy of black SUVs, it was already over. Karen was trapped in her office, surrounded by shredded documents and burning hard drives. They walked her out in cuffs while the world watched live. I stood on my porch, my son filming neighbors cheering papers with bogus violations shredded and burning in trash cans. Karen screamed about her connections in Washington. But in that moment, her power was gone. She wasn't Queen of Pine Ridge anymore. She was just another criminal hauled into the daylight. And that's the story. How one woman's greed and arrogance turned a neighborhood into a battlefield, and how standing my ground even when I doubted myself brought her empire crashing down. Never forget, bullies only win when we stay silent.